Let's make a diagnosis. I think the patient, Europe, is in desperate conditions, but not very serious. Let's get some indicators. First of all, let's get some indicators of peppers. The regulations dealing with the single market involved, according to estimates, anything between 150 to 200,000 pages, including those issued by the European authorities and issued by the member states. There is no estimate about the regulations dealing with Eurozone just because I think they were embarrassed. They're just plainly embarrassed. Let's get to some numbers. When Frau Merkel became the Chancellor of Germany, an estimate of the impact of the cost of the 7,000 most significant federal regulation, 7,000 out of 15,000, but they were 7,000 most significant, and that didn't include the regulations by the Länder, was 40 billion euros. That's why, when she became a chancellor, she undertook to reduce the cost by 25%. I don't know whether she reduced the cost by 25%, but I know that some simplifications on the regulations has been done. In Italy, the situation is really desperate and serious, and not serious at the same time. When we were told that in Germany the cost of the regulation, federal regulations, was 40,000 billion, we said, well, we are very good. You know, Italians like to play tough. Huh? In our country, the cost of regulation is only 16 billion euro. Now, the odd thing that for the last 10 years, a study of the cost of regulation has been carried out by a special office in the Prime Minister, and only the consultant costs have been €1 million. But nobody has seen the study, the full study. I'd like at some stage Parliament to ask for the full study, to have not a briefing on the study, but just to see the document, and then to put the document on internet. Prognosis. If the situation goes like that, we know that Europe now is the sick man of the world, and Italy is the second sick man of the Eurozone. The situation can only get worse and get desperate and serious at the same time. What can we do? I don't think that we should pay too much attention to the annual scholarly and very good reports issued on the simplification of regulation by the OECD, because each and every page is approved by the 30 member governments. So they are compromise reports. Until a few years ago, the Bertelsmann Foundation, Stiftung, a German institution, published every year a regulatory reform report. That was very good. Then at some stage, I haven't seen it any longer. But there are a couple of things that can be done. And I think that can be done immediately. They are, first of all, take an example on what in the USA is called the Stockman legislation. When Dave Stockman was the director of budget, a piece of legislation was approved, which is the only piece of legislation in the USA which has never been changed in 36 years. Which means that if it has never been changed in 36 years, it means that various presidents, other presidents and their wives changes, other Congress will change, majority and so on and so forth, found that that was pretty good. It is a regulation that requires that each government department or each group, members of Congress or Senate, who want to propose a regulation, have to make a detailed economic cost-benefit analysis of the regulation. Not of the impact on the budget, which is what we are trying to do in Italy, and we don't do it, and we don't do that very well, but just what is the cost and benefits. Recently, on the economic and financial literature, there have been quite a number of very good scholarly pieces of paper on the cost and benefits of various types of financial regulations that have been introduced in the last few years due to the financial crisis. This is the first thing. The second thing is to introduce what I would call a sunset regulation. Now, what do you mean for sunset regulation? This should, I would say, nearly be a constitutional covenant. As we have a constitutional covenant on budgetary equilibrium, there should be a similar thing, that no legislation, no regulation should last forever. Should have just a period, but it lasts. When the period expires, there should not be no automatic renewal. It should go back to Parliament to be seen again whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was indifferent, whether it's still necessary. We have to think that most of the regulations in many of our countries, in the areas of communication, transport, and so on and so forth, deal with technologies that are obsolete, that nobody applies any longer, that you can find quoted only in the books of histories or in the novels. Just, I don't want to take more time. I want to conclude by mentioning that 15 years ago, a good friend of mine in my first life in the World Bank, a British fellow, we established in Britain something called the European Conference or something like that. It was a rather conservative British fellow, published an excellent book called Europe Simple, Europe Strong. If Europe is not simple, Europe will be weak. And thus we have the demonstration every day. We have just to remember that some 16 years ago, the European Council undertook to make, by 2010, Europe as the most dynamic, the most technologically advanced area in the world. And look where we are now. It is clear. Well, thank you for your patience. I tried to keep in 5 to 7 minutes. I think I was able to do that. Thank you.